people should be at home. They should be safe and indoors and bunkering down for the night. We expect that the cyclone will come through Brisbane at around 7 o'clock tomorrow morning, so early tomorrow morning. And please don't come out of your home until it's safe. We really need to encourage people to think about their safety as the first priority. Brisbaneites are used to floods in some ways, it's sad to say, but this is different to a flood because there are other hazards involved. We might have fallen trees, we might have fallen power lines. The safety is the key message here tonight.
And I think it's good for people also to keep in mind that, we can't be there for everybody if something happens, especially while the cyclone is still going. Emergency services won't be out, SES won't be out until the situation has calmed down, because it's just dangerous for them to go out, to be out. So if you do decide to go out, then you're going to be pretty much on your own out there while the cyclone crosses. And I think it's important for people to know that. We're used to somebody coming to our aid, and this is not the situation where it's not a normal situation, Councillor.
And look, hopefully our city has been using that extra time that we've had to really do a little bit more preparation. So hopefully people have taken that opportunity to get a little bit more prepared, but now is the time to really stay home, because we're starting to look at our making plans for our recovery, and we've certainly got teams on standby to undertake a rapid assessment immediately after the cyclone. But right now, it's time to stay indoors and stay safe.
Councillor, Moreton Island comes under Brisbane City Council's management. We know there's a take shelter warning issued for Moreton at 5. What do we know about what's happening there?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I haven't spoken to anyone who is on Moreton Island, but we can expect that they will cop the brunt of it. Brisbane has islands before you get to the city, obviously, whereas the Gold Coast is a little bit more exposed to the coast, as anyone who knows the maps would be able to tell. So Moreton is really copping it right now, and Brisbane will be next.
And they know, don't they, that if they've chosen to stay, that they're there for the duration now, if you're on those islands.
That's right. We've had emergency services working with residents right across the most at-risk areas in our council area to sort of talk to them about if they need to move or if they should seek sort of perhaps accommodation with friends or family. And so that has been a process, because we've had a bit of time on the lead into this. That's one good thing, where we've been able to really warn people and make sure that they understand what the risks are. If I could just encourage people, when the cyclone does pass and when that immediate threat is over, it might feel like it's okay to kind of go out and sightsee or something like that. Please don't. We don't know what kind of damage there will be with the power lines, as I mentioned, and trees down. Why don't you check on your neighbours first? It's great that you want to help, but check on your neighbours, check on your family, and check on your friends. Keep it local. Don't go driving across Brisbane. Let's just, really sort of go back to those COVID days where you stay local and look after who's in your local patch.
Yep. It can be very dangerous. It might feel like, yeah, let's go out and see, but no, that it's just not the time for it. You're absolutely right, Councillor. Councillor Fiona Cunningham is Deputy Mayor of Brisbane, and we're just checking in ahead of tonight, and as things start to ramp up in terms of rain and wind. And the Evacuation and Relief Centre at the RNA, Brisbane, do we know how many people are taking shelter there?
Look, it's not at capacity yet, Kelly. So from the last I heard, there was a few people there, but we really do encourage everyone to go to friends and family first. These short-term facilities are used as a last resort during the peak week. So they only have basic amenities, and you really will be more comfortable with family and friends. But by now, you probably should have made the decision, to go to a family and friend or to those places of refuge. Now is not the time to be sort of going out on the road and making those decisions. We need everyone to be safe. Now is the very last chance you have you are in a high-risk area.
What do you think it is going to be that helps Brisbane people get through the night?
Well, there is a great sense of community in our city, and I was really proud to work with my local residents after the 22 floods. And we do band together and we do find ways through this. I know even with my neighbours, there's been a lot of camaraderie and sharing of information and messages and kids kind of banding together as well, which is lovely to see. So I think, some positives can come from this. We're in for a really rough time for the next few days.
We certainly are. And look, the thing after that is, of course, probably a lot of rain, and we're all hoping it'll be in those lower estimates rather than the higher estimates. But cleanup is going to be a long process, isn't it? If these winds keep up in the way that the Bureau has said they're going to, there's going to be a lot of trees down, there's going to be property damage. We hope that no lives are lost, but it's going to be a big cleanup time.
Absolutely. So we don't yet know what the impacts are going to be, obviously. We don't have a crystal ball, but we are already having conversations with Volunteering Queensland to try and coordinate some volunteers after the event. But again, it comes back to safety. This is not just a flood. This is two events in one. We have a massive storm, cyclone, which brings other hazards, and then we have a flood. So, there are different risks to what people who live in Brisbane are normally used to.
And Councillor Cunningham, you've got a young family. How have you been explaining this all to the kids?
Yeah, I've got a 3.5-year-old and a 7-year-old.
Yeah.
And we've been having some honest conversations today that there is a big storm coming and that they might hear some noises during the night, but Mummy and Daddy are home and they're safe. And the most important thing is that they know that they're safe and that we're going to get through this together as a family.
Yeah, and I think that's the best thing you can tell them. Excellent advice. Well, Fiona Cunningham, thank you so much for your time tonight. And we hope that everybody will stay safe, they'll do the right things and just stay inside. Don't let curiosity be the thing that brings you undone. And hopefully we'll, it won't be as bad as the worst could be. And
Absolutely. Fingers crossed.
Absolutely.
Fingers crossed, Kelly. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, Fiona Cunningham, who's Councillor for Coorparoo and Deputy Mayor of Brisbane City Council.
Evenings with Kelly Higgins-Devine. Live across 612 ABC Radio Brisbane and Queensland. Covering Cyclone Alfred. Call 1300 222 612.
And look, a lot of people have been saying, I've just got a few messages saying that we've lost you here and there. Look, there are probably, with wind gusts and things happening, you're probably going to lose us every now and again, depending where you are or where you're listening to us and where you are. So if you're listening on AM, if you're normally listening on AM, just keep in mind we are also available on the ABC Classic Brisbane frequency 106.1 FM. So if you lose us on AM or you don't have an AM radio, well, if you don't anymore, then you'll find us on 106.1 FM, which is the Classic Brisbane frequency. But there is, of course, always the ABC Listen app. You can listen online through your digital radio and Channel 25 on your TV. So you can also listen to us tonight on ABC Gold Coast, ABC Sunshine Coast, ABC Southern Queensland tonight, ABC North Coast, ABC Coffs Coast, and ABC Mid-North Coast. And it's good to have everyone from the Mid-North Coast with us tonight. And of course, we're all thinking about you and just the flooding you've got already, the evacuations you have, the issues with water as well for those communities who've been asked to conserve water. And we're hoping that it eases up on you all very soon.
On 612 ABC Radio Brisbane and Queensland, this is Cyclone coverage. Tell us what's happening where you are. 12.
Now, one of my regular guests on the evenings program is my pop culture expert, Tony Johnson-Woods. Hi, Tony.
Hi, Cal.
Now, Tony happens to live in an apartment in Brisbane CBD, so I thought I'd just check in and see how it's going. You're starting to feel any wind gusts yet? I don't know, would it be wind tunnel time in the CBD?
Well, yeah, it's been on and off, and I was going to step outside if you wanted to hear some wind, but I'm sure you've heard plenty of wind.
Yeah, that's okay. No.
Okay, you sure?
Yeah, I'm sure.
So I'm overlooking the botanical garden, and I gauge by the trees, and the trees are kind of taking, obviously, a bit of a bashing at the moment. But I had my door open before we went to air, and I wasn't getting much wind through my apartment. So I'm having a different relationship with this than people in houses. And I don't know if there are other listeners there that are in apartments, but the one thing I've found about living, and I'm quite high up, is that we can get gust channels around on my patio. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it sort of scoots through on the patio. And of course, I was a bit less there about leaving my pot plants out there. Because you always think, oh, the wind won't be big enough to pick me up, and I'm a pretty hefty person. I think, well, who am I kidding? This is Mother Nature. You can't fight Mother Nature. Even me, I could be picked up and thrown over. So I bought everything inside, and so I'm watching, and I have different sort of things. So I'm watching from outside through all the glass, and of course I have tinted glass on because a lot of my doors are glass. So, and I'm up high enough to capture the glass because I'm past 7th floor, right? I'm up near the 15th floor, so you know what I mean? So everyone's going to have different concerns. Cal, have you found that from your listeners?
Yeah, depending where a person is and how it's going. People on the north side of Brisbane, for example, it's been a very calm, lovely day for many of them. And I even had someone I know who owns a bakery saying, do you reckon we should open tomorrow? And I had to go, no. Hell no. It's, even though you're not feeling it, you will feel it. Or you can actually, it's that thing, is it ever coming? The media's beating this up, all that kind of thing that happens when you can't see evidence of what's going on. And yet, on the Gold Coast, if you ask them if it's real, heck yeah, it's real. And Northern New South Wales, if you ask them if it's real, oh yeah, it's real. So it is coming your way for all those people sort of going, nothing happening here. Is something actually going to happen? It is. It is going to happen. And, different suburbs will have different experiences. Where your house is, it's like a flood in many ways. Where you are will determine, and where the rain goes will determine what your experience is. And the same goes with a cyclone. But there is definitely one coming, and that you will feel the ramping up of wind and rain over the next, 6 to 8 hours, definitely. So, yeah.
I think that's the thing. You get a little complacent, like me. I'm thinking, I'm hefty. Oh, wind won't pick me up. And I'm thinking, who am I kidding?
Yeah.
I've lived through tornadoes in the Midwest. I lived in the Midwest. And I can tell you, that's when you learn. It's always the roof off, and so I'm hoping everyone's got their safe place in mind, where they go. Have they got something to put over their head in case of wind? All those little things that you just aren't an issue for me, but I've been talking through with friends. I'm sure most of your listeners have. If you talk it through with someone, they'll often come up with something that you hadn't thought of. Now, if I have to get out quickly, what do I do? And I was saying to a friend of mine, if you've got to carry things, you've got a suitcase on wheels there. Grab the suitcase on wheels and just drag it. The things that at the times that you either go I tend to go very calm and focus in, and some people go to panic. So everyone will react differently, and that's absolutely fine. But if you've got a little bit of a plan in your head, it just helps you think, okay, I've got to get out, the cat's going to go crazy. Sorry, kitty cat, you're going into my little wheelie for, 5 minutes till I get out of here, and then at least, you'll be okay. And that's what I think unsettles us all. You're in the lap of the gods because if you're in a house, you're caught in a wind, it can twist the house, and also your windows off, and you can't open doors and think, God, I'm standing like the top of a dune. I'm not going to do that, folks. I'm talking about...
You have to be ready for anything. For most people, it's going to be absolutely fine, and if it happens to you, you have to know, okay, where's your safest place? Is it in the toilet? Is it in the bathroom? Have you got a corridor with no windows that's safe and protected? Just go sit there and be as safe as possible.
For me, I was thinking, it might even be the stairwell.
Yeah, could be.
You know what I mean? Because, you just don't know. And just having a mini plan in your head, instead of being complacent, like silly me, and to forget, oh, my plan will be fine, because mine could get picked up and blown out and damage someone else. So it's a community thing. And that's what I think is so great about Australians, because I know everybody, old enough to have been through quite a few, that's when we pull together and we put all of those silly differences aside and we speak in and help each other. So that's why we've all been, as I said, on the phone, because I've been also through Japan earthquakes, and that when your whole building shakes and you just sort of think, I'm in the lap of the gods.
Yeah, you are.
But this is how I'm going to protect myself and my family, and then you can go into that adrenaline, this takes over mode. But at the moment, it's another philosophy living on in the botanical garden.
There we go. Who'd have thought? Tony Johnson-Woods, thank you so much for having a chat with me this evening. Tony is my pop culture expert, and we will probably catch up with her next week, I would imagine, or the week after. Let's go now to the Redlands Mayor, Joss Mitchell. Joss, hello.
Hello, how are you?
Good. Now, you've had an emergency warning to take shelter now for Redland Island communities and mainland. Are people taking heed of that warning tonight?
They are. I've just been out sandbagging my back door and just looking out onto the street since there's no one inside. So, the good news is with everyone, I think because the rain's pretty heavy now and the wind's picked up, people are staying indoors now.
Okay, so are those pretty much the conditions that you're seeing around Redlands tonight?
Yeah, definitely the wind's picked up now, and the rain's quite heavy. There's a lot of wind, so we can expect this to escalate now until we know that the Alfred is due to hit North Stradbroke Island at its northmost point around between 4 and 5 tomorrow morning. And then we're expecting it to hit the mainland over Cleveland around 10 a.m.
So for those who are listening tonight and aren't quite sure what the Redlands takes in, can you describe your area?
Yeah, sure. So on the northern side we go to Kirkdale, and then we go east to Calabar, and then south to Redland Bay, and then we've got 6 residential islands. So we have North Stradbroke Island, Fisher Mudlow Island, Russell, Macleay, Lamb and Carragara.
Are those the areas you're most concerned for tonight?
Absolutely, because they're off the coast, they're bearing the brunt of this wind and surf impact. So I am very concerned, and we have about 4,500 to 5,000 residents without power this evening as well across the island, and one street I believe in Redland Bay so far. But those island communities I'm very concerned about.
Yeah. You've got a few evacuation centres and places of refuge. Do you know how many people are taking advantage of those?
Yeah, so to date we've seen, we had 2 people the night before last night, and then last night we had a couple more. So we've had about 5 to 6 on Russell Island overnight, and the night before that we had 1 on Russell and 1 on the mainland.
All right. Well, at least even for one person, a place of shelter can be, a haven that they desperately need. So it's good to know they're there.
So they are there. The places of refuge are a last resort through this phase if you need an alternative place to go. And then after that, our evacuation centres will open soon as conditions die down and after the past, the evacuation centres will kick in and we will move into recovery phase immediately.
What are your concerns regarding storm surge?
So we've had some good news this morning with our modelling's pretty much on point, and so we've prepared really well. Queensland Police Service was great and helped us out by door knocking about 3,000 homes this week in preparation for this, to just advise people that they might feel impact and if they feel unsafe to move, and to give them information. So that was really helpful, and we're expecting a little less than what we'd initially thought. So that at least is some good news.
It certainly is. So what would be your message tonight for residents of the Redlands community?
So now to hear the alerts, and now is the time to stay indoors. Take the time that you've got left to prepare and just put yourself in the best possible position for safety now. Yep. And sit tight and until this all passes over.
Yep, and staying inside is the best place to be at the moment, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. And we want to come through this with a 100% safe community. That's our goal.
Sounds good to me. Let's hope the power stays on as much as possible, and thank you so much for your time, Joss Mitchell.
Thank you very much, Kelly. Thank you.
Joss Mitchell, Mayor of Redlands City Council.
Evenings with Kelly Higgins-Devine. Live across 612 ABC Radio Brisbane and Queensland. Covering Cyclone Alfred. Call 1300 222 612.
Now, for those who aren't used to giving me a call, my number is 1300 222 612. So if you want to have a chat tonight, give me any information. I would love that. 1300 222 612, or you can text 0467 922 612. 0467 922 612. And those numbers are the ones that send you texts, give me a call. We would love to hear from you, especially about what's happening in your area, no matter where that area happens to be across the southeast corner tonight or northern New South Wales, or even if you're somewhere else in Queensland or Australia or the world and you just want to give us a shout out. It's 8 o'clock.
Authorities say residents in the path of tropical cyclone Alfred should be taking shelter. The system is expected to make landfall tomorrow, as Lily Knopling reports. The Category 2 system is continuing its slow path towards southeast Queensland and is on track to reach the Moreton Bay Islands early tomorrow morning. Modelling indicates it'll weaken to a Category 1 before crossing the coast north of the Redcliffe Peninsula. Premier David Crisafulli says the state is ready.
With the preparations we put in place, the way that we've been able to get those messages out, I do have every faith that people will get through it.
Gold Coast, Redland and Moreton Island residents have been urged to take shelter now, with destructive wind gusts up to 155 kilometres an hour possible tonight. Cyclone Alfred is now less than 100 kilometres off the coast. The Weather Bureau's Angus Hines says conditions will continue to intensify throughout the night.
Currently what we're seeing is a continuation of strong winds for coastal areas, mostly south of Brisbane actually. Still haven't really seen those winds whip up in Brisbane all that strongly, but from the Gold Coast southwards, the winds have been blowing very powerfully through the day today. And rain has been coming and going as well, but we are just watching a particularly heavy band of rain just working its way onto the very far south of Queensland as well as the northeast of New South Wales.
Services across southeast Queensland have wound down ahead of Alfred's arrival. More than 1,000 schools are closed alongside over 2,000 early childhood centres, supermarkets and Gold Coast airports have also closed. All public transport services across the southeast will be suspended tomorrow. A satellite health centre in the Redlands has been closed due to potential flood risk. Otherwise, all hospitals remain open for emergency care. About 60,000 properties across the southeast are in the dark tonight as a result of the wild weather. The majority are on the Gold Coast and the Bay Islands. Brett Judd from Energex says the window for remaining crews to be out reconnecting homes is rapidly closing as the cyclone approaches.
Unfortunately, those customers will have to ride this out until the cyclone passes. We know that there will be more wind, there will be more rain as it comes closer to the coast. No one, if they're losing power now, they should not expect to have power back until this cyclone has passed.
Meantime, police are cracking down on risky behaviour on Sunshine Coast beaches after several rescues in recent days. Liz Gwynn reports.
2 teenagers have had a lucky escape after they were caught to rough surf off Sunshine Beach yesterday. Lifesavers and a rescue helicopter located and rescued the 17-year-old boys near Alexandria Bay. 3 people on a jet ski were also rescued near Noosa. With conditions set to deteriorate, Sergeant Kyle Bates from Sunshine Coast Water Police says boaties could face fines in excess of $32,000 if they're caught operating their vessel.
It's dangerous activity under the current conditions.
Businesses could face fines in excess of $100,000.
The ABC understands the Albanese government will hand down a budget this month with plans to call an election in April, all but scuttled by Tropical Cyclone Alfred. Isabel Rowe reports.
Anthony Albanese had been planning to call an election on Sunday following an expected Labor win in the West Australian state election. But a source close to the Prime Minister has told the ABC that is looking very unlikely, with the cyclone expected to cross the coast tomorrow morning. It's understood preparations that were underway for a potential mini-budget or a budget statement to be made during the campaign will now be diverted towards a full budget on the 25th of March. There is still a slight chance the Prime Minister could call an election on Sunday or Monday if Cyclone Alfred passes with minimal damage.
To Queensland's weather tomorrow, Tropical Cyclone Alfred is moving slowly towards the southeast coast and is enhancing winds and large and powerful seas and swells about the coast. Cyclonic conditions expected, cloudy with a very high chance of rain, the chance of a thunderstorm. Destructive wind gusts exceeding 150 kilometres an hour possible. Heading for a top of 25 in Brisbane and on the Gold Coast, the Sunshine Coast a top of 27, Ipswich 25. This is ABC News. 25. This is ABC News. 25. This is ABC News. 25. This is ABC News.
ABC Radio Emergency Information.
And you're with Kelly Higgins Divine tonight. It's 8:05. We'll check in with the Weather Bureau in just a moment. And let's see what's happening with the Bureau. They're saying that a cyclone warning is in place from Double Island Point in Queensland to Yamba in New South Wales, including Brisbane, the Gold Coast, Sunshine Coast, Byron Bay and Ballina, but not including Gympie. Rainfall, wind and ocean impacts are likely to persist over the weekend. Tropical Cyclone Alfred is most likely to cross over the Moreton Bay Islands Saturday morning before crossing the mainland coast, most likely between Noosa and Beenleigh later during the day. There are a number of major flood warnings for Queensland, including the Logan and Bremer River, as well as Worrell Creek. And in New South Wales, the Tweed, Wilsons, Brunswick, Richmond, Bellinger, Nambucca and Orara rivers and Marshalls Creek. In some areas, you may be receiving emergency alerts via SMS or text alerts to your mobile. This includes emergency warning to take shelter now for Moreton Island, take shelter now for Redland Island communities and mainland, take shelter now for the Gold Coast. There are also multiple Watch and Act warnings in place. Check your local council's disaster dashboard for the latest. If any upgrade to that emergency situation, we'll let you know as soon as possible. In New South Wales, seek shelter. That's in place for far north New South Wales. Heads to south of Byron Bay. There are also multiple emergency warnings for many locations as far south as North Haven near Port Macquarie. For maps and more details, go to the SES New South Wales website or the New South Wales Hazards Near Me app. And if you have power, there are a few ways to keep up to date with what's happening. For the latest weather warnings and the latest cyclone track map, head to the Bureau's website or to the ABC emergency website. For information on your local area, log on to your council's disaster dashboard, websites or social media, or the Queensland Disaster Management website, which is disaster.qld.gov.au/warnings. Alternatively, you can stick with us here on ABC Radio or on the ABC Listen app. And you'll hear from the Bureau again in just a moment. And the key message from emergency services is to stay indoors. If you are in immediate danger, contact 000. The SES also available on 132 500. We'll continue to keep you updated on ABC Radio and the ABC Listen app. And just remembering that we are also available, if you normally listen to ABC on the AM frequency, we're on the ABC Classic Brisbane frequency, 106.1 FM for the duration of the cyclone.
Evenings with Kelly Higgins Devine, covering Cyclone Alfred on 612 and Queensland. Call 1300 222 612.
And let's see what's happening with Tropical Cyclone Alfred. Angus Hines, Senior Meteorologist at Bureau. Good evening.
Good evening. Glad we could touch base once again tonight.
Exactly. As we are going to at around 5 past the hour, every hour this evening, okay, with Tropical Cyclone Alfred, people are very keen to know exactly where it is.
Yes, so at the moment it is about 70 kilometres northeast of the Gold Coast, 85 kilometres east of Brisbane. But you've got to imagine the islands east of Brisbane, Moreton Island and North Stradbroke, obviously sticking out a little bit off the coast, so it's only about perhaps 50 to 60 k's off of those islands. So it's getting really quite close to the country now. It's moving at about 7 kilometres an hour towards those islands, and it does look like the islands off the Brisbane coast are going to be the first places to see the actual crossing of the centre of this tropical cyclone, and that's likely to happen through the early hours of tomorrow morning, around about 2 a.m. perhaps, by the time it will reach those offshore islands. So that's the current location, moving fairly slowly, but it is approaching, and it is still spinning bands of rain onto southern Queensland and northeastern New South Wales. So we're seeing a pretty solid band of rain, which is just starting to move into southern Brisbane, but it is covering all areas to the south of that, out through the Gold Coast, down through Coolangatta, into Tweed Heads, into parts of the northern rivers as well. So fairly wet conditions persisting really across all of those areas. Really gusty as well. Once again, the Gold Coast actually copping some of the strongest wind gusts. About 90 kilometres there at the moment. Last night it was very windy along the Gold Coast, and that led to significant power outages, and we're seeing those winds matched once again tonight and forecasting it to be another exceptionally windy night for that part of the state.
Okay, so for people, I think what is happening, because this cyclone is big, how big is it?
That's a good question. It depends what you sort of classify as the edge of it, I suppose.
Yeah.
So the centre of the tropical cyclone could be something like about 40 kilometres across, but we're seeing bands of rain which are several hundred kilometres away from the centre of the tropical cyclone. So the system as a whole is several hundred kilometres wide. And even if you talk about the wind, we're even seeing strong winds through other parts of sort of central New South Wales, and those winds are influenced by the tropical cyclone, although maybe not directly a part of the system itself. So as a whole, if you were to look at it on a satellite image, you'd say perhaps 400 to 500 kilometres wide, but even its influence is stretching further than that.
With that, we've got questions about the noise of the cyclone. How far will people be able to hear the noise of that cyclone? Is it pretty only much if you're being affected by it?
Yeah, the noise of the cyclone is primarily wind-driven, of course, so it is where those winds are strongest. Now, the difference between a tropical cyclone and what we would often see in this part of the country, which is a severe thunderstorm, which is another significant weather event which does occur over these areas quite regularly during spring and summer, is with severe thunderstorms, we're often talking about very strong wind gusts, and those can cause damage in their own right. Of course they can. But with a tropical cyclone, what we're often talking about, and certainly as this one makes its way onto land, we will be talking about is the strong, sustained winds, so persistent strong winds of 80 to 90 do cause a bit of a racket because it doesn't just blow up in gusts and get loud for 15 seconds and then die away. It's going to be blowing strongly for an hour or several hours at a time as that tropical cyclone slowly moves past your area, and it really can get quite loud and whistly, particularly near the crossing point. So around Brisbane, into the Gold Coast, into Coolangatta, and into the Northern Rivers, those places probably seeing the strongest of the winds overnight tonight. But certainly expecting it to be rattling some windows and keeping some people awake, and maybe, a bit of a tricky night to get a good night's rest, I suspect.
All right, now, as it moves towards the coast, is it going to, people are asking questions, Angus Hines, about whether Brisbane will start to see, the southern parts of Brisbane will start to be affected in the same way the Gold Coast has been affected?
That does as the tropical cyclone does work onto the coast a little bit north of Brisbane, the wind direction will change because you imagine those winds are wrapping very tightly around the middle of the system. So the winds across southeast Queensland so far, with Alfred offshore, have really been southerlies, and that has meant that the Gold Coast is quite exposed, but Brisbane has been much more sheltered, and that's why the wind has been a lot calmer there, not just right now, but for the last several days the wind has been stronger, much stronger on the Gold Coast than it has been in Brisbane. As the tropical cyclone shifts to the north a little bit and makes its way onto the country, the wind's direction will change, and all of a sudden Brisbane will no longer be wind direction, so that will likely cause the winds to really increase quite significantly across the Brisbane area. So those wind speeds are forecast to increase a lot, and certainly we could see those gusts rivaling what we've seen on the Gold Coast tomorrow and through Saturday morning as well. And we also expect the wind to, we also expect the rain to pick up in Brisbane by the same token. So there's been actually pretty little rainfall in Brisbane so far, much heavier falls to the south. But those heavier rainfall totals, particularly through Saturday, really are anticipated to set across the city.
Angus, what makes it difficult to give a sort of suburb by suburb analysis of how they might go? Because people are asking about Logan, for example, and Wynnum Manly, and it makes sense, absolute sense, to want to know exactly how your suburb might be affected by this. And be it on the Gold Coast or the Sunshine Coast or northern New South Wales, you really want to know about your home and your community. What would make that difficult to give a sort of a suburb by suburb analysis of what might happen?
Yeah, great question. There's probably two primary factors that make that a very difficult challenge for a weather forecaster. The first is just the local terrain, the local effects, the local topography. Of course, every part of, or I guess every suburb in a big city is slightly different. You could be slightly elevated, you could be slightly on one side of a hill, protected from a certain direction. Northern parts of Brisbane are going to be more exposed to some directions, southern parts of Brisbane more exposed to other wind directions. The river, of course, could play a little bit of a factor. So there's lots of little local effects which can influence your climate. And when we're looking at a big weather event, really hard to pick those out and tease those out suburb by suburb. Potentially could be done with a fine-tooth comb, and we might be here talking for 45 minutes to try and get through each suburb. But then we've also got the intricacies or the delicacies of tropical cyclone forecasting, where we can get slight wobbles one way or the other. We can get slight acceleration or deceleration of the system, and that's going to mean that the forecast will shimmy around a little bit. There will still be slight edits depending on the exact speed, the exact movement, the exact intensity of the tropical cyclone, and that means that you can't really get down to that defined suburb by suburb, confidence in the forecast, given that there is still that always that chance of a slight shift in the track or a slight acceleration on the track. So it's a great question, but it's not something we can realistically do in the time frame that's required to get out frequent updates.
All right, now we haven't talked much about the Sunshine Coast, Angus, the hinterland area especially. What might they expect over the next 24 to 48 hours?
No, we haven't talked about them, and that's because so far they really have escaped the worst of it. We have always been saying that we expect the most significant conditions, both wind and rain, as well as the coastal conditions, to be worst on the southern side of the tropical cyclone. That's certainly what we've seen so far, with the Gold Coast down to northern rivers of New South Wales having seen the worst conditions so far. If we do see the track cross somewhere around Redcliffe, north of Brisbane, as is currently forecast, in the track map, then places north of that will probably avoid the worst of conditions, and that does include the Sunshine Coast. But I think that is definitely an area that still needs to be vigilant through tonight and tomorrow, because we do anticipate the winds to pick up, and there could well be some bands of heavy rain up there as well. I don't want people in that area to think that they are going to avoid all the bad weather if the tropical cyclone crosses a little bit to the south, because it could still move to those places. They are still covered in our severe weather warning areas. That means there is still a risk of the severe weather impacting those northern places as well. We do just expect the strongest and most intense conditions to be south of that crossing point.
And finally, for this hour, anyhow, Angus Hines, we'll talk to you again after 9 o'clock. But for northern New South Wales areas, what can they expect tonight?
They can expect a continuation of what has already been a couple of days of quite heavy rainfall. There are some weather stations in northern New South Wales in the mid-north coast region, actually, which have already seen over 400 millimetres, approaching 500 millimetres rain through the course of the event. And it's a long way from finished. So there are a lot of major flood warnings for rivers through both the northern rivers and the mid-north coast areas. So I can just quickly rattle some of those major flood warnings off. We've got the Tweed River, Marshalls Creek, the Brunswick River, the Wilsons River, the Richmond River, the Orara River, the Ballinger River, and the Nambucca River. And then also on the Queensland side of the border, the Logan River, Worrell Creek, and the Bremer River. So with heavy rain still coming in those places, we do anticipate significant flooding across the river network, with the potential for flash flooding even for areas away from rivers, creeks and streams due to the ongoing heavy rainfall. So it's a continuation of very wet conditions tonight, overnight and into the weekend. Perhaps by Sunday, most of the rain will have fallen, but it could well still be wet into next week.
All right. Well, there's a lot of water coming, so thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. We'll chat again soon.
There we go, and that's Angus Hines, Senior Meteorologist at the Bureau of Meteorology. We will be talking with John Raven, Mayor of Logan, and we have been talking with John on ABC Radio Brisbane and across the southeast corner, I think every day over the past week. So hopefully those in the Logan area have been hearing John, and we'll be talking with him shortly. Right now, though, let's go to Brett Judge, and Brett is from Energex. Hi, Brett.
Hey, Kelly, how are you?
Very well. Now, there are now 61,500 people without power.
Yeah, look, that's going to be a number that will bounce around and go up and down a little bit. We are still having some crews go out and being able to get some customers on in some areas, but not all areas. The Gold Coast is pretty steady at that 48,000 at the moment, so and that could continue to rise.
Alrighty, so it looks like the most affected area, I mean, people without power know that they're without power, I suppose, but you're looking around Biggerel Waters, Balinga, they've been out for a while. A lot of these areas have been without power now for 24 hours at least, haven't they, on the Gold Coast?
They have, and the Bay Islands as well. So, you know, we're looking at an extended period that these customers should expect to be without power. There was, you know, plenty of warning ahead of time that people needed to be prepared to make sure that they had batteries, charged their devices, made sure that they had some communication. So hopefully people have heeded those warnings and taken appropriate action, because it will be some time over the next few days before our crews are actually able to get in there. We are at the mercy of Mother Nature, and we're also at the direction of emergency services. So our crews will not go into any areas until it's deemed safe.
All right, so the Gold Coast seems to be the area most affected, and which you'd expect at the moment. The islands, as we mentioned before, are the ones most affected around Redland City, and Scenic Rim as well.
Scenic Rim.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, and I guess that's an extension of the Gold Coast, really, isn't it? We know that when we saw those storms rip through in 2023, and Tambourine Mountain was, unfortunately hit so heavily, again, they're bearing the brunt as well. A lot of this will be vegetation. This will be branches that are coming down, and it will either be causing damage to the network, or it will be tripping the network protection. And the network protection is like the safety switch in your home. If it knows something's wrong, it turns it off so that it's safe. So the problem we've got is that with a cyclone, crews can't go out and patrol now and say, actually, you know what, everything's fine here, safe to turn back on. So unfortunately, we're in a situation where we're not able to check to see whether it is actually just something that's brushed over the line and not caused damage, but caused an outage.
All right. Well, it's good to talk with you, Brett. We'll update again in an hour's time. Thank you. Brett Judge from Energex on ABC Radio Brisbane, Queensland and northern New South Wales tonight, and also quite a few hundred people around Carolee in the Ipswich City region without power. Most other places just here and there with power outages. Anunda, however, nearly 200 people without power in the Nunda region.
Everything you need to know about Cyclone Alfred on 612 ABC Radio Brisbane and Queensland. Call 1300 222 612.
And have an SMS that says, I'm sitting here in Lota, Brisbane, on a main road through to Wynnum. I have a sheltered lower floor garage that I can sit in and view out across the road and into the trees, through to the mangroves and a shallow, sheltered mudflat. Still a lot of traffic going past. The rain's minimal. The wind is kind of gusty, but nothing consistent. I can hear the wind moving the trees during the gusts and the traffic in between, but it's quiet. So there we go. That Jeff says it's just started pouring in North Lakes. I think it's finally begun here. And I think that's going to be an experience for a lot of us tonight, is that we're going to start feeling the effects of that wind and a lot of rain coming through as well. We've just been waiting so long that I think you started to get that little voice in your head saying, is this real? Is this ever going to happen? Well, I think tonight, for some of us, or for many people down in northern New South Wales and the Gold Coast, it's been very real for a while now, but for many of us in Brisbane and the Sunshine Coast, it's been a bit, doesn't feel like much is going to happen. Well, that situation is changing quickly. Peter Flannery is Mayor of Moreton Bay Regional Council. Good evening.
Good evening, Kelly.
And you've got an emergency warning at Take Shelter Now for the Moreton Bay region issued earlier today.
Yes, that's right. Just about half an hour ago, we put that warning out that people take shelter now. Those winds are starting to build significantly here in the city of Moreton Bay. So we're saying that let people know, get off the roads, get into your homes, and be safe and secure.
And the conditions in your area tonight, what are you seeing and hearing?
Well, I'm about probably 15, 20 kilometres from where North Lakes is, further north. We've got no rain at the moment, but there's wind building. I was just looking at some of the wind ratings there, and it's at about 35 kilometres at the moment, and I think we're expecting anything up to 85 kilometres when it hits us, probably at about 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning, with gusts up to 120, so it's going to get a lot worse than what it is now.
Absolutely it is. Your biggest areas of concern for your area?
Well, if it comes at 7 or 8 o'clock, it's good. We pass our high tide mark at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, so our storm surge won't be as a significant impact as it could have been. We're looking at probably half a metre of storm surge on top of the highest astronomical tide. But it'll be our low-lying areas, and then the wind and the hinterland areas, because a lot of forest areas up there, vegetation that could be brought down with these winds. Yeah. And of course the rain that's going to come afterwards. This is the big wait and see, isn't it, Peter Flannery? The rain, and exactly how much is going to fall and where it's going to fall. And until then, this is a waiting game for a lot of the southeast corner, and of course northern New South Wales already feeling it. Yeah, it certainly is. It's and looking at the predictions, they're saying it's still a Category 2 now, but when it hits Moreton Island, it could take a bit of wind out of its sail, so to speak, and increase to a Category 1 when it hits land on the city of Moreton Bay, either at Redcliffe or Bribie Island or somewhere in between. Yeah. So there'll be a significant amount of rain that's coming with that. Exactly. It's interesting, isn't it, that you think, oh good, the wind is less, but then that can mean that the rain is more. And what Mother Nature gives with one hand, she takes away with the other. Yeah, and it can hover over us for a longer period of time and dump more rain. So we're hoping that it would move in quickly and not dump so much rain. We've had enough rain and flooding issues in the city of Moreton Bay over the years. So fingers crossed it moves on quickly and that it decreases intensity for everybody.
Yep, let's keep our fingers crossed on that. So will you be sort of watching what's happening for the rest of the night?
Yeah, we've got some early morning media to do as well, so we'll see how this pans out. It seems that it was 10 o'clock, it was going to hit, now it's 8 o'clock, and now we've been told 7 o'clock, so it's getting faster and faster as it comes. So
yes,
I'm sure sometime in the morning I'll be awake and dealing with these issues.
That's right, and hopefully not standing out in the middle of it going, yeah, it's really blowy out here, like you see journalists doing. Exactly. Well, you take care, and we hope that everybody in Moreton Bay stays safe, especially those in the islands areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Take care.
Peter Flannery, who's Mayor of Moreton Bay Regional Council. And let's go now to Donna Gates, who's Acting Mayor of the Gold Coast. Donna, good evening.
Hi, Kelly.
Wow, your area has really been copping it for the last 24 hours, hasn't it? How's everyone going?
It's really, really bad down here. We always knew it would be if the cyclone passed the coastline north of Brisbane, because all information led us to believe that the southern impact would be greater for the Gold Coast in that circumstance, and that's exactly what's happened. So we've had, really high winds last night, up to 120 k per hour. We've already got over 45,000 dwellings without power before this thing crosses the coast. And people are doing it a little tough, but it's been a long wait and we've had a long preparation time, so most people are quite well prepared.
They certainly are. Now, you're getting information that things are speeding up. We sort of heard that with the Bureau that it had gone from sort of 5 k's now to 7. So let's hope this is over sooner rather than later.
Yeah, well, originally today it was going to be a 1 o'clock crossing at Redcliffe tomorrow. I believe now it's come forward to possibly even 7 a.m. We were hoping it would be a little later so that it doesn't coincide with the high tide. It still escapes you, I think. I think 2 a.m. was the high tide time, and so it'll be after high tide, and that will make a difference. But we're expecting a lot of rain across the region, more rain because it is slow moving, over a wider time frame because it is slow moving.
Lots of power outages as well already, Donna Gates. So this is difficult, isn't it, when people don't have power and you don't know how long you're going to be without it?
It's really hard, and of course there were no council workers on duty today because of safety issues, and equally there was no one from Energex or Ergon working today. So the people who lost power today will be out of power for, I think, a good few days. It's not encouraging at all for them. I do want to say, Kelly, before I forget, while we're on power, that there's been a special request for people to use the Energex hotline for any power lines that they see that might be down. 131962. There were some issues with the 000 number being clogged with power line reports. So if your listeners would be happy to take down that number 131962, I'm sure it will be helpful.
Absolutely, it will. So what are things like at the moment outside, Donna Gates, where you are?
It's raining. It's incredibly dark tonight. Much darker than usual. And it's waxing and waning a bit from periods of quite heavy rain to nothing at all and a kind of stillness. So where I am at least, which is near the Bundle Chambers, further to the south has been where we've experienced the most damage to date, except for the escarpment along the seawall from Southport to Nobbies. We've had 4 to 6 metres escarpment, and we've had the undermining of much of our waterfront infrastructure along there. So we're urging people, don't go and stand on any platform along the beachfront, because some of the infrastructure below is undermined, and we don't want anyone to fall through.
No, absolutely not. And look, now is not the time from now until the cyclone calms down and it's gone past. Now is not the time to be outside, really, in any circumstances. With that, we've been hearing that some of the stations where the lifeguards are have toppled over, which is kind of unthinkable, isn't it, that much sand would go?
Exactly, but we've got our sand pipeline pipes fully exposed, and I'm not sure. I have had reports that there might even be a breakage in the pipeline. The rocks are all exposed that are supposed to be a form of protection well under the sand. The sand's all gone. So this is before we get the extreme winds that are expected between now and the cyclone crossing.
Yeah.
So we haven't fared too well today. I'd have to say community has been amazing, and everyone from members of the federal government right through have been incredibly supportive of our city. I've even had calls from the Governor-General and the Governor of Queensland. It's greatly appreciated in these tough times.
Yeah. What does it mean for if the pipeline is damaged, the pipeline that you mentioned?
Our staff is on call, and I guess we'll get to it just as quickly as we can. I haven't had any formal report, but I did see some photographs of it fully exposed today, so it wouldn't be a surprise.
All right then. What will you be doing for the rest of the evening, Dawn?
I'm looking forward to a little bit of rest. It's been like 4 and 5 a.m. starts now all week, and I'm about done. I think I've done about 20 interviews today.
Yeah. I must admit, we were very, very pleased that all the mayors were able to help us out tonight, because we understand that you do start early, you keep going throughout the day, keeping all your communities updated. This is a huge area that's being affected by this system, and you've all been wonderful. So we appreciate your generous spirit, but also the way you've tried to uplift your communities as well.
And Kelly, can I just say thank you to you, because the messaging is so important. So that's why we do it all, so that our communities are so well informed, and it's very helpful that you've interviewed so many mayors tonight. So thank you.
You're welcome. Gold Coast Mayor, the coast, like northern New South Wales, really feeling the first brunt of Tropical Cyclone Alfred. And Jenny on the text line saying, Donna, you need to go to bed, get some sleep, because it is going to be a busy time after this cyclone goes through. We're hearing that it might be around 7 a.m, as the mayors have said. That time keeps changing. And look, a few texts coming through as well from people who quite rightly are very frustrated that things keep changing, that the information keeps changing. And that is just the way cyclones go. Unfortunately, it's not like a normal storm where you can sort of say, all right, it's going at this speed and it's going to hit you about 30 minutes time and this is what's going to happen. They are vastly different. They're huge, as we've heard, and they're not alive, but they do have a mind of their own. And they work to varying conditions around them. They slow down, they speed up, they shift south, they shift north, they do a whole lot of things. So the intensity at the moment in South Brisbane, I'm being asked about that. How much worse will it get? If you're in South Brisbane, give us a call. In fact, if you're anywhere around the southeast corner, northern New South Wales, I would love to hear from you tonight about how it's going in your particular region. What are you hearing? What are you seeing? If it's ramped up where you are, what are the noises that are coming through at the moment? Questions also about, when's the best time to seek shelter? Well, you'll know it once the wind starts up and you can hear the rain pouring down. It'll be a different experience to probably if you're in those areas that are not so affected at the moment. It'll be a very different sound and a very different feeling. But the easiest thing to do is to get yourself in a safe place as soon as possible once you start hearing that. Just get yourself somewhere where you're not going to be affected by breaking glass or power might go off, and just be ready for it. And look, try to get the best night's sleep you can, by the way, because depending where you are, it's going to be maybe power for a long time off. It could be flooding in your area, once again, depending where you are. There are so many variables with this, and we can't give you guarantees about anything except the cyclone is coming. That's all we can be absolutely assured of. and we're trying to give you the best information we can, but unfortunately a lot of that's going to be very general and not absolutely focused on your particular area. So, but we hope we're giving you enough that you can keep yourself and your property safe. Somebody was asking about the eye of the cyclone before. Here's a bit of information.
You're listening to ABC Radio, and there's a cyclone in your area. The eye, or centre of a cyclone, may have light winds and fine weather, or severe gusts of wind may continue. The threat is not over. The eye is surrounded by a dense ring of cloud known as the eye wall, which is the most dangerous part of the cyclone, with the strongest winds and heaviest rainfall. Don't go outside until the cyclone has passed.
During a cyclone, you need to act to keep you and your family safe. Keep listening to your portable radio for information on the cyclone's progress. Seek shelter in the strongest and safest part of your house, well away from doors and windows. And remember to take your emergency kit with you. If the building starts to break up, shelter in the strongest part of the building, like a cellar or even under a mattress or strong table. Stay inside until the threat passes.
Evenings with Kelly Higgins-Devine. Live across 612 ABC Radio Brisbane and Queensland. Covering Cyclone Alfred. Call 1300 222 612.
Got a message here that says, why are all the bottle shops shut? Talk about the important things, please. That is so Queensland. Anyhow, let's go to the Mayor of Ipswich, Teresa Harding. Good evening, Mayor Harding.
Good evening, Kelly. Thank you very much for having me on tonight.
Not a problem. Now, what are the key messages you want to give out to Ipswich residents?
Oh, look, just heart out to our coastal neighbours. It's obviously really tough. You can see those images. And whilst we don't have those winds here, we are certainly gearing up for the flooding. We do know that if there is a flood, it'll really impact us out here in Ipswich and the Lockyer areas quite strongly. So this afternoon, the Queensland police recruits, as well as the fireys and SES, commenced door knocking in those lower lying areas. Forecasts from the bomb on Riverine and that flooding is even more uncertain than normal. It's just the way it is. And so, we're going where we know we need to go. We have evacuation centres ready to go once we know the situation with the flooding. But they're not open yet. We'll open them when they're needed.
All right, now the disaster dashboard, is it up to date?
Absolutely has live feeds. The Ipswich Disaster Dashboard has live feeds from the bomb, TMR, Energex from the power outages, as well as those disaster updates as well. And we had our very first initial flood alert this afternoon, just before 6 o'clock, outlining that there was the initial major flood warning for the Bremer River and Worrell Creek. So whilst they certainly have not risen, but there is a warning, there is an expectation that those rivers will rise significantly.
You've had some door knocking going on as well in those high-risk areas?
Yes, we have. In those high-risk areas, based on where we know there's low level. Also, we had some of our councillors out there door knocking this morning as well, and I think because we've had so much time since Sunday, there's quite a lot of people were prepared. People were actually making a move to be with family and friends as well.
I suppose with areas that have been flooded before, there can be very high anxiety as well. What are you feeling in your community?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of anxiety just around is it going to flood or isn't it? But also the wind. So whilst we've had floods here, we don't like them, but we know we can band together as a community. The wind is an unknown for us here.
It isn't, indeed. So what are you hearing about the wind effects for Ipswich? By the time, I suppose, Alfred gets inland a bit to Ipswich, to Toowoomba, for example, they'll have died down a bit?
Yeah, look, we're obviously hoping once it hits the land, the wind will die down. And a few days ago, Council released for the first time the potential flood mapping as well, based on the data from the Bureau of Meteorology. And so residents have had that there, and obviously it's uncertain, data changes each day, but it does give people some type of indication of where that the riverine flooding will occur if it does occur.
Okay, so getting on to the dashboard is the best place to find that flood modelling?
Absolutely, it's in multiple languages as well, and it's got great maps and flood cameras there as well.
All right, so for you it's a bit of a wait and see. We're starting to get messages through at the moment, Teresa Harding, just about wind and rain. Coomera on the northern end of the Gold Coast, and different parts of Brisbane around the coastal areas especially. So you can start to feel that this cyclone is getting closer and closer as it is to land, and a few areas that have been unaffected to this point are starting to feel it. So we hope that everyone in Ipswich will remain safe, and they'll just need to keep an eye on how much rain falls. And I imagine that's as you mentioned, your biggest concern.
It is, and look, obviously we're starting to get those winds tonight, and nothing like on the coast, but shelter in place, stay in your home. That's the safest place to be. And look, we know the people of Ipswich have been through disaster before. We are an incredible community, and we'll be ready for whatever Alfred throws at us. We'll come together and we'll get through it together.
Sounds good to me. Teresa, thank you very much, and of course our best wishes to everyone around Ipswich.
Thanks, Kelly.
You're listening to ABC Radio, and there's a cyclone in your area. Cyclones can bring heavy rain and widespread flooding. You and your family may be stranded for days until flooding subsides, and some remote areas can be isolated for months. The decision to drive through floodwater impacts people around you, including rescuers, your family and friends. It may be deeper or faster flowing than it appears and contain chemicals, raw sewage and snakes. It can take just 15 centimetres of water to float a car. Remember, if it's flooded, forget it.
If you're driving when a cyclone hits, stop in an area clear of trees, power lines and streams. Cyclones can bring heavy rain and widespread flooding to your region, so never park or camp in a dry river crossing. Roads may be flooded and impassable, and you should always obey road closure signs. Remember, if it's flooded, forget it.
In a moment, I'll be having a chat with the Toowoomba Mayor, who, of course, as many of you know, I'm broadcasting from Toowoomba. I'm what we kind of know as the designated survivor, which means that I'm the person that they send outside Brisbane just to make sure that we have a safe broadcasting centre somewhere in case everything falls over in Brisbane because a cyclone is going through. So here in Toowoomba, I've been made very welcome. It's lovely here, and so far just a bit of rain, but not much wind at all. But we'll have a talk to Toowoomba Mayor about what they're expecting. I thought we could all do with a bit of Prince on this Friday night.
Tell me
and raspberry beret. Was it a Gen X choice? Yes, it was. And can you come back to me on the bottle shops, please? I'm in Palm Beach and we have no coffee either. Okay, bottle shops are shut because it's dangerous to have a shop open at the moment on the Gold Coast. And if you've got no coffee, honestly, you poor things, you have my sympathy. No power, no coffee. Yeah, I suppose that's any coffee addict's idea of hell. But otherwise, we hope you are safe and well wherever you are, and that you keep yourself safe and keep that magnificent sense of humour. You're with Kelly Higgins-Devine on ABC Radio Brisbane, Queensland and Northern New South Wales. And I have the Mayor of Toowoomba here with me, Jeff McDonald. Good evening to you. I've just got to find which mic you're on. Hello.
Kelly.
There we go.
Thank you, Kelly, and a very warm welcome to the Garden region, the Garden City of Australia.
It's beautiful up here at the moment.
Well, it is, and we aren't seeing obviously as much as we're seeing at the coast. And
yeah.
Firstly, can I do a call out to all of my mayoral colleagues to the east? We meet regularly and often, a couple of times a day on the Queensland Disaster Management Committee, and our thoughts and prayers are with them all, everyone in that area at the moment.
Absolutely. So what is Toowoomba expecting in terms of rainfall?
Yeah, like I've been listening intently to the calls around the uncertainty of what's unfolding and the timing. We're on the current numbers, we're about 12 hours to 20 hours away from what will hit landfall. So if it drops to Category 1, the Bureau of Meteorology will get a better indication of where it will come through, wind speed, the amount of rainfall. At the moment, the Bureau of Meteorology is suggesting that on Saturday we'll receive between 75 and 150 millimetres, and then Sunday between 100 and 150 millimetres, and then Monday will drop to about 10 to 20 millimetres showers. So 300 mils over a couple of days. Wind, you've mentioned as well. Saturday it's predicted to be around 50 kilometre winds, and on Sunday 90 to 100 kilometre winds. So that will definitely affect power lines and what have you, and making sure people are safe in their yards, putting things away, etc.
Okay, so with that rainfall, 300 mils over a couple of days, what does that mean for Toowoomba? Are you used to those kind of rainfalls? Not, every weekend or anything, but are you used to
We certainly don't put our border in for them,
no.
if that's true. However,
like 300 mils.
we have 2011, of course, through here in the Lockie Valley, which is significant.
Yep.
It won't be near 2011.
Okay,
so
that's
certainly the modelling. 2022, we had significant rainfall as well. The suggestion is that it won't be quite there. Flood mitigation measures that took place after 2011, around about $300 million worth of flood mitigation.
Yep.
That's held us in very good stead. That said, we will see, according to the measures, we will see some level of localised flooding in areas that do flood now, so locals would know those areas. The township of Oakey is one that we're keeping a really close eye on at the moment. That is susceptible to flooding. We've got obviously flood mapping that we're doing overnight. We're running a new run, and we'll have those available through our disaster dashboard tomorrow, if not by 8 o'clock, soon after that, just to give locals that confidence. If we do need to send a message to evacuate some of those low-lying areas, we'll send that as quickly as we can. We haven't had a need until now, till the modelling is starting to get more narrow, I guess. We'll know more tomorrow morning when that modelling comes out. But at this stage, the preparation, all of our agencies, emergency services cadets were filling sandbags for people yesterday and today, helping them out. That's the sort of spirit that we have in our region, and we're seeing it. We're seeing it regularly. So, we're not strangers to flooding. The rainfall, we're no strangers to. The wind was a worry for us, but it is calming down a little bit by the time it gets to us. So, still 90-kilometre winds. Fly a good kite in those conditions.
You certainly can, probably shouldn't though.
No.
Warrego Highway, tell us now, that is always a bit of a problem because it can flood. So what information are you getting on that? Because we're supposed to go back to Brisbane on Monday because I'm doing an overnight session.
Okay, well.
Midnight Sunday into 5 a.m. Sunday. Am I going to get home? It's okay if I don't because I quite like it.
Worse places to be, surely.
Oh, absolutely, I'm not complaining.
And you're always welcome to stay as long as you like.
Thank you.
But it looks very much like that will be okay. However, just to to give people a bit of a sense of the importance of the Warrego Highway, it's the second most trafficked highway in Queensland, behind the Bruce Highway. There's a bridge called the Bremer Bridge, which you're familiar with. You drive over and it goes down to one lane, and heavy vehicles need, because of the integrity of the bridge. That's one that is a real concern for us, because if that goes out, there's some 4,000 heavy vehicles per day travel on that. So we're talking about supply chain and also product to and from the Port of Brisbane. We see just through the value of product going through the Port of Brisbane across the Bremer Bridge, which predominantly comes from the west of that, naturally, into the Port of Brisbane. 70% of the product goes through the port. It goes through the port, crosses that Bremer Bridge, largely from our region. So it's a critical piece of infrastructure. I did speak to the Minister for Transport about that, and he simply said, Jeff, we will monitor this as we go, which is pretty normal and standard. So we'll see what happens. But if people hear Bremer Bridge is out, you know that it's significant, because not only is there 4,000 heavy vehicles, there's about 30,000 vehicles a day.
Yeah. Are there any other parts of the Warrego that could flood?
There is Glenore Grove. So there's a little shop called Second Hand Shop, Meaning to Stop.
That's the best name for a shop ever. I've been meaning to stop.
It's like this side, or the western side of Plainlands, and you can turn that way to go into Laidley. That is known to flood. Locals know that. If that cuts off, that's another significant part. Then you go further down to Mount Crosby, Tivoli. So there are patches all the way along. If you get through there, of course, the range, the traditional Warrego Highway, was always a problem for landslips and the fact that it could close. Now we have the second range bypass, the Toowoomba bypass. That's a beautiful road when you can't get through anywhere else. The alternative then, of course, is the Cunningham Highway, which goes through to and around and circles right the way around, and that also does have some trouble. So, supply chain recovery, you think of Defence Force, there's all of those things that go through the Warrego Highway, critical piece of infrastructure.
All right, well, it sounds like Toowoomba's going to do very well. Thank you so much for coming in, Jeff McDonald, and for bringing the bickies that your wife made.
Thank you, Lisa.
Country
Big shout out to
hospitality.
Lisa listens to you every evening.
Thank
Kelly,
you, Lisa.
So there you go. She's done a special treat for you. But yeah, look, we're not out of the woods, so we need to be vigilant for all those listeners out there, particularly those in the east. We wish you well, and we'll be probably half a day away from what you're feeling.
Thank you.
This is Cyclone coverage on 612 ABC Radio Brisbane and Queensland, your emergency broadcaster.
And you with Kelly Higgins Divine this evening. Now, while we wait for Tropical Cyclone Alfred to cross the coast, you might be scrolling through your memes and posts about the system. Some of them are going to be funny, some of them are going to have great information, but some of them might be deliberately misleading. Matt Martino's a senior journalist with ABC News Verify. He's posted an excellent and factually correct story on the ABC News website called How to Spot a Fake Cyclone. Hi, Matt.
Good evening, Kelly.
So you've been seeing some obviously false videos and photos and memes.
Indeed. It doesn't take very long when there's a disaster that comes along for fake images and videos to spread online. And I think probably the thing that people should remember is that, social media companies want you to think that their platforms are built on totally authentic conversations. That's true sometimes. But online, they all have incentive programs. They pay people for engagement. That's one thing to think about. And so when a disaster comes along, there is that incentive for people to post really quickly, really emotive videos which might fool people and earn them a little bit of clicks and clout.
Yeah, I've been seeing videos that are obviously of cyclones and storms in other places around the world and that were from years ago. But if you don't know the area, it can be very easy to think, oh my God, that's happening on the Gold Coast, or that's happening in Brisbane, or whatever it might be, and it's happened 10 years ago in Spain.
Absolutely, and like some of the videos that we've seen, they don't even have to have footage, stitched together from the same places. They can be just disaster footage from all over the world, stitched into a single video with, sirens placed over the top of it to, make people emote, and then, people, the account will claim that it's from Brisbane, and people who are from outside the area might be none the wiser about that. We found one particular video which already had 1.6 million views on TikTok. So people, a lot of the comments said that's not Brisbane, but still 1.6 million people watched it, and the algorithm is continually serving it up to people. So it just goes to show that people are indeed falling for it and watching these kinds of videos.
It's nearly 9 in Queensland, 10 in northern New South Wales, well, all of New South Wales. Matt Martino, what are the things we should ask ourselves before we share a video or a photo or whatever it might be?
Well, there's a few things you can ask yourself. The first one is, who is the source? So you want to interrogate the profile that might have posted this on TikTok or Facebook, social media platform. If they're an ordinary citizen, you might ask yourself, okay, well, does it make sense that they're in the disaster zone, or are they 1,000 miles away? Have they just been posting cat videos, and then all of a sudden they found something on the ground, they found themselves in the middle of a disaster zone? Yep. Or do they post disaster videos all the time in a really suspicious way, which makes you think that they might, be trying to get clicks and clout out of their account?
Yeah.
That's the first thing.
Okay, unfortunately we're going to run out of time, but Matt Martino, thank you very much, and we can find that story from Matt online. Go to the ABC News website.
This is Cyclone coverage on 612 ABC Radio Brisbane and Queensland, your emergency broadcaster.
ABC News. Good evening, I'm Christy Sexton-McGrath. Tropical Cyclone Alfred is now less than 100 kilometres off the Queensland coast. The system is expected to make landfall tomorrow, as Jasmine Hines reports.
The Category 2 system is slowly making its way towards southeast Queensland. It's estimated to be 85 kilometres east of Brisbane and 70 kilometres northeast of the Gold Coast. 90-kilometre wind gusts are being recorded tonight at the Gold Coast. Heavy rain is continuing to develop over southeast Queensland and northeast New South Wales. Modelling shows the cyclone is most likely to cross over the Moreton Bay Islands early on Saturday morning before crossing the mainland, most likely between Noosa and Beenleigh later in the day. Once Alfred crosses the coast, it is expected to weaken below tropical cyclone strength later on Saturday.
The Gold Coast has borne the brunt of Alfred's approach since mid-afternoon, with tens of thousands of homes currently without power. Energex has warned it could be days or possibly more than a week before crews will be on the ground. The Gold Coast Acting Mayor, Donna Gates, has told ABC local radio the cyclone's position has put the area in the firing line.
It's actually worse for us because we're at the south of the cyclone itself, and the southern impact is the worst of all because cyclones move in a clockwise motion. We were hoping for a direct hit rather than a southern impact because it's so much worse.
About 30 disaster refuges have been set up across the southeast. More than 9,000 homes have been door-knocked. The SES has received more than 300 requests for help in the past few hours, mostly for roof tarping and sandbagging. More than 55,000 homes are without power, mainly across the Gold Coast, Redlands and Scenic Ring. Brisbane's Lord Mayor, Adrian Schrinner, says more than 3 million people could be impacted by Alfred.
While cyclones are common in North Queensland and in the Northern Territory and parts of WA, those areas are much more sparsely populated, and so that's why it is so important that we take this seriously. There's more risk of people getting injured, there's more risk of damage occurring in such a built-up area.
Islands in Moreton Bay off the coast of Brisbane will be the first to feel the impact of Tropical Cyclone Alfred's crossing. About 5,000 residents are without power across those island communities. Redland City Council Mayor Joss Mitchell says the system is on track to reach the islands before dawn.
We expect Alfred to make landfall from the islands, from North Stradbroke Island, around 4 to 5 a.m. tomorrow morning. And then Cleveland, we're looking at 10 a.m. for our mainland.
Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has told the ABC's 7:30 program New Zealand would send a team to Australia to assist with the cyclone recovery.
Prime Minister Luxon has today approved a disaster team to come to Australia of 66 personnel that also have experience. It's a great example of what families, and Australia and New Zealand are, I think, family, do for each other.
More than 9,000 homes were door-knocked today in the lead-up to Alfred's arrival. A satellite health centre in the Redlands has closed due to potential flood risk. Otherwise, all hospitals remain open for emergency care. More than 1,000 schools in the impact zone are closed, alongside over 2,000 early childhood centres. All public transport services across southeast Queensland will be suspended tomorrow. Tropical Cyclone Alfred is now less than 100 kilometres off the Queensland coast. The system is expected to make landfall tomorrow. The Category 2 system is slowly making its way towards southeast Queensland. It's estimated to be 85 kilometres east of Brisbane and 70 kilometres northeast of the Gold Coast. 90 kilometre wind gusts are being recorded tonight. Heavy rain is continuing to develop over the southeast and northeast New South Wales. Checking the weather tomorrow, Tropical Cyclone Alfred is moving slowly towards the southeast coast and is enhancing winds and large and powerful seas as well as about the coast. Cyclonic conditions expected, cloudy with a very high chance of rain, a chance of a thunderstorm. Across the state, Cairns and Townsville 33, Mackay 32, Townsville 33, Mackay 32, Townsville 33, Mackay 32, Townsville 33, Mackay 32, Townsville 33,
ABC Radio Emergency Information.
And you're with Kelly Higgins-Devine this evening on ABC Radio Brisbane, Queensland and Northern New South Wales joining us this evening. Now, if you normally listen to 612 ABC Radio Brisbane at 612 on the AM dial, then I'm very pleased to let you know that we are simulcasting our rolling coverage on the ABC Classic Brisbane frequency. So you can also find us on 106.1 FM, 106.1 FM, and we'll maintain this coverage on both 612 and 106.1 FM for the duration of the cyclone and in the days to follow. Now, of course, you can still listen to the ABC on 612 through the ABC Listen app, pardon me, online, on digital, on Channel 27, on the TV as well.
Evenings with Kelly Higgins-Devine, covering Cyclone Alfred on 612 ABC Radio Brisbane and Queensland. Call 1300 222 612.
And look, I've just got a text saying that apparently there are regular classic programs, not cyclone coverage on 106.1, which I've been mentioning, so I'll just get one of my producers to have a bit of a listen and see what's going on there. Okey-doke. On the ABC Gold Coast, you can find us there as well, 91.7. ABC Sunshine Coast, 90.3 or 95.3 FM at Gympie. ABC Southern Queensland at 7:47 AM on the Darling Downs, 104.9 FM on the Southern Downs, and ABC North Coast New South Wales, 7:38 AM for Grafton and South areas, 7:20 AM at Tweed-Darling and the Gold Coast, and 94.5 FM Lismore and Northern Rivers, and also joining us tonight, ABC Coast Coast and ABC Mid-North Coast at Port Macquarie. So good to have you all aboard. And joining us tonight from the Bureau of Meteorology is Dean Narramore. Dean is Senior Meteorologist at the Bureau. Hi, Dean.
Good evening, how are we?
Very well indeed. Now, what is happening with Tropical Cyclone Alfred? I suppose people are keen to know where it is and how fast it is moving.
Yeah, exactly right. It's now started that west-northwesterly jog now. Currently it's on 8 p.m, so we'll be updated very, very soon for the next hour. Just crunching the numbers right now. It's about 80 kilometres to the east of Brisbane and 70 kilometres to the northeast of Gold Coast, moving west-northwest at 7 kilometres per hour. We're starting to see those winds start picking up and the rain. We're seeing winds gust to 98 kilometres an hour at the Seaway not long ago. Coolangatta 89 kilometres an hour. And even those winds starting to pick up in Brisbane. It's getting pretty breezy in the building here. And we can hear the whistling around. We're getting gusts of around 67 kilometres an hour at Brisbane Airport. Archerfield getting around 60 kilometres an hour as well. Redcliffe also around that 60 kilometre mark. Heaviest rainfall right now really starting to come into the Gold Coast area. We're seeing falls in the Callabudra area around that 25-30 millimetres in the last hour. And that rain also continues down into the northern parts of the northern rivers where we've cracked over 100 millimetres now since 9 o'clock this morning around the Lismore area and many other of our odds in far northern New South Wales.
With that, northern New South Wales, what can they expect this evening? What are those people in line for?
Yeah, look, we're just continuing to see, so even as the cyclone wobbles towards the west-northwest, towards the Brisbane area, well south of that, we're continuing this onshore east to south-easterly flow that we have seen the last few days. So that's driving our big waves into northern New South Wales. It's also driving the rain well inland as well. It's been very windy down to there as well, where we're getting almost gusts around Cape Byron, 90 to 100 kilometres an hour, gusting 50, 60 further inland towards Lismore and those locations. We had a pretty intense band of rain in the Lismore area the last hour or so. Thankfully, those conditions have eased a little bit, but in the far northwest corner, in the Kingscliff, Chindera, down through there, we're seeing that rain really starting to ramp up in the far northeast corner there.
Okay, and that would mean that people can expect those affected rivers with the flood warnings to be getting even more water in them?
Yeah, that's exactly right. You know, we have numerous major flood warnings current from the Nambucca and Ballinger down the coast, all the way up through the Richmond, Wilson, Brunswick, Tweed, all major flooding or forecasting for major flooding later tonight into tomorrow. And most of those rivers are all rising right now and will continue to do so as the rain continues to fall through much of the northern rivers. And our concern really is that heavier band you can see on the radar just offshore. That's likely to swing inland as we move through later tonight into the early morning hours tomorrow as Cyclone Alfred continues to track west-northwesterly. And I can see those rainfall numbers really starting to jump up, which means we'll continue to see rises on many of our rivers in the northern rivers, particularly northern areas, overnight into the morning.
Now, with that, when will areas of Brisbane start to see heavy rain?
Yeah, so the Brisbane area, we've seen those light winds now, and those winds are starting to pick up, and sorry, light rain, I should say, not light winds. Winds are pretty gusty out there. But the light rain is spreading to the Brisbane area. That area, that heavy rainfall around Gold Coast, probably going to move into the southern suburbs of Brisbane, probably within a few hours' time into the midnight hour, and then spreading probably right across the Brisbane metropolitan area. As we move into after midnight and early morning hours, it'll probably continue right through into Saturday morning, and possibly even later tonight, depending on the exact crack and intensity of tropical cyclone Alfred. But yeah, light rain now, starting to see that pick up into the midnight hour, and then probably start getting heavy after midnight through much of the metropolitan area and into the early morning hours.
Now, Dean, will it still cross as a Category 2 at this stage?
Yeah, we're looking like it's probably going to be a little bit weaker. It's probably going to be Category 2 as it moves through the Stradbroke and Moreton Islands. So very windy conditions there, big tide, seas and swell and a lot of rain. And then it's going to slowly weaken as it moves through Moreton Bay and then crosses probably around the Bribie Island sometime on Saturday morning. But Category 1, Category 2, we're still talking about winds near the core and to the south, gusting up to 120 kilometres an hour, and still widespread heavy rainfall that will continue well after tropical cyclone Alfred crosses.
Okay, and what time is that crossing expected to be? Because that seems to be, you know, as you'd expect, by the way, it's not a criticism, it's bouncing around everywhere.
Yeah, it really is, and sometimes it's not great to concentrate on the crossing because the weather is going to be, you know, up to 3 to 6 hours before it crosses and 3 to 6 hours after it crosses as well. But at this stage, looking around that 8, 9 a.m. time frame where it crosses, with the worst conditions being near and well south of where it crosses.
How long would because I had a question before, someone asked me, how long is this going to last? Once it really starts to ramp up, how long will a cyclone take to sort of get through what it's going to do and clear?
Yeah, so because we're currently very slow moving, around 7 kilometres an hour, it means you're going to be in that band, and the worst of the conditions are going to be that you can use the radar really well. So that thick band of rain, those brighter colours you see on radar, that's normally where the heaviest rainfall and the strongest winds are to the western and southern side of where tropical, particularly the southern side of where tropical cyclone Alfred moves. Because of that slow movement, you're kind of looking at 3 to 6 hours of that really strong winds. And then you might get a bit of a break as you go near the eye or under the eye, especially for northern areas towards Bribie Island and northern suburbs of Brisbane. And then sometimes you get the strong winds on the backside of that coming from a different direction and heavy rainfall as well. But the wind threat will actually ease as we get through later on Saturday lunchtime into the afternoon hours. But the rain threat is going to continue and be more widespread and move inland through southeast Queensland and northeast New South Wales right through Saturday and even into Sunday morning. So the wind threat might be over in about 18, 20 hours, but the rain threat's probably going to go for another 24 to 48. So it's a long way to go yet.
All right, and Dean, for people who still aren't feeling much, and lucky them, says Northern New South Wales and Gold Coast,